In today's world, men with degrees are broke, men with diplomas are jobless, and men with schooling are failing, because education without vision is slavery, and knowledge without action is dust. The world is full of men who did everything they were told, yet still failed. Men who spent years sitting in classrooms, memorizing lessons, collecting diplomas, walking across stages with caps on their heads and pride in their hearts, only to wake up years later, broke, frustrated, and forgotten. They were promised that education was the key to success. But today, the streets are littered with men holding degrees in their hands and despair in their eyes. Men with schooling are failing, because schooling is not the same as wisdom. Schooling gives you information, but not imagination. It gives you lessons, but not vision. It teaches you how to obey, but not how to lead. You can master equations, memorize theories, and write flawless essays. Yet if you cannot master your own mind, if you cannot command your own fear, if you cannot see opportunity where others see nothing, then all that knowledge becomes nothing but dust. Look through history. The giants of creation were not molded by classrooms. Edison had little formal education, yet he lit the world. Carnegie was a poor boy with no degree, yet he built an empire of steel. Henry Ford was mocked for dreaming of a horseless carriage, yet he transformed industry forever. Walt Disney dropped out of high school, yet he drew dreams that outlived him. Lincoln, with barely a year of formal schooling, wrote words that reshaped a nation's soul. These men were not defined by diplomas, they were defined by vision, persistence, and faith. But what of the men who trusted only in schooling? The ones who believed their degree was a crown. They wait. They wait for opportunities to arrive like gifts. They wait for promotions, for recognition, for someone else to validate their worth. But life does not wait. Life belongs to the daring, not the waiting, to the man who acts, not the man who hesitates. School trains men to fear mistakes, but greatness is built on mistakes. The blacksmith does not shape steel with silk. He hammers it with fire and blows until it becomes unbreakable. So too must men be hammered by failure, by rejection, by hardship, until they are forged into something unstoppable. A degree cannot teach you this. Only life can. And yet, millions of men are paralyzed, terrified of taking risks, terrified of stepping into the unknown, terrified of failure. They hide behind their certificates, using education as an excuse for inaction. But the world does not care what you studied. Cares what you create. Cares what you dare to do when the odds are stacked against you. It cares whether you can rise after being crushed. Understand this. You are not failing because you lack knowledge. You are failing because you lack belief. You are not stuck because you don't know enough. You are stuck because you refuse to act on what you already know. The man with a degree and no desire is like a lamp with no fire. The man with knowledge but no vision is like a ship with no sail. But the man who burns with a dream, who breathes life into vision, who dares to persist even when the world laughs at him, that man cannot be stopped. Life does not reward the man who can recite history. It rewards the man who creates it. And so the question is not, what have you studied? The question is, what burns inside of you so fiercely that it keeps you awake at night? What dream refuses to die, even when others call it impossible? What vision would you fight for, bleed for, even die for? That is your true education. School can give you knowledge, but it cannot give you willpower. It can sharpen your intellect, but it cannot ignite your soul. It can prepare you for employment, but it cannot prepare you for destiny. That part is your responsibility. That part requires discipline so fierce that comfort cannot seduce it, persistence so relentless that defeat cannot kill it, and faith so unshakable that the entire world could doubt you, and you would keep going anyway. This is why men with schooling are failing. Because they were taught to obey instead of to dream, to memorize instead of to imagine, to fear mistakes instead of to embrace them. But those who rise above, those who become the giants of tomorrow, are the men who turn education into action, information into innovation, and failures into stepping stones. The world bows not to the man with the highest grades, but to the man with the highest grit. Not to the man who waits for opportunity, but to the man who creates it. Not to the man who asks for permission, but to the man who declares with conviction, "This is my vision, this is my purpose, this is my destiny." And until you become that man, no diploma can save you. Men with schooling are failing because they were never taught the first law of success. Mastery begins in the mind. You cannot lead a company, build an empire, or change the world if you cannot first govern your own thoughts. The battlefield is not in the classroom, it is in the silence of your own mind. Every doubt, every hesitation, every whisper of fear is a chain pulling you back. The man who surrenders to those chains will live his life crawling, no matter how many diplomas hang on his wall. But the man who learns to break those chains, to rise above the noise, to feed his imagination with faith instead of fear, that man becomes unstoppable. Napoleon Hill wrote that thoughts are things, not empty fantasies, but forces that shape reality. The man who allows his mind to dwell on weakness, failure, and despair will live out those very conditions. The man who trains his mind to dwell on victory, abundance, and strength will bend the world in his favor. This is not magic. It is law. You attract what you are. You become what you think. Yet schooling rarely teaches men this truth. It trains them to memorize, to repeat, to calculate, but not to believe. Belief is the architect of destiny. When Ford envisioned an automobile for the masses, he did not yet know how to build it. When Disney dreamed of a kingdom of imagination, he had no blueprint. When Lincoln spoke of unity in the midst of division, he had no guarantee of victory. But belief carried them forward when knowledge alone was not enough. Knowledge tells you what is. Belief tells you what can be. And without belief, knowledge is nothing more than trivia. Think of the man who clings to logic, who calculates every risk, who waits for conditions to be perfect. He may be educated, but he will never act. He will stand forever on the shore, debating the tide, while the man of belief has already set sail. The world crowns the sailor, not the skeptic. Mindset is the seed of all achievement. If you sow doubt, you reap hesitation. If you sow fear, you reap paralysis. But if you sow faith, you reap action. And action, repeated with persistence, produces destiny. Men with schooling are failing because they have not been trained to guard their thoughts. They let the voices of others dictate their beliefs. They allow rejection to shrink their dreams. They give more power to the opinions of strangers than to the vision burning inside of them. And in doing so, they silence their own greatness.